So here we are, we're looking at other types of inheritance because not everything in the natural world follows Mendelian rules of dominant and recessive. So one example is called incomplete dominance, and this is a case in which one allele is not completely dominant over another. The alleles actually combine their phenotypes. So one example is the flower color in Japanese 4-o'clock plants. There are two dominant alleles. There's actually no recessive allele. Capital R is for red flowers. Okay, it provides a red trait. So if a plant inherits two red alleles, or capital R's, it gets red flowers. If it inherits two W alleles, or white traits, it gets white flowers. Now, if there is a combination, the pink flower example, that's when the plant inherits one red trait and one white trait, one red allele, one white allele. Okay, so what we want to do is, this is what your note packet looks like. Okay, what I want you to do is, you've already written in the definition for incomplete dominance in the example. So now we're going to fill in the red and the white parent. Now, if we were to go ahead and cross that, okay, and we were to fill in the parents, we would fill in the parents, right? Capital R across the top and WW across the side. When I do this Punnett square, I actually find out that I get all what type of plant? Is this what you're getting? Haha, nice W, Mrs. Learned. Hopefully that's what you've got. Because when we look at the next page, we see that we get all pink flowers. So what is our genotype ratio? At this point, our genotype ratio is 100%, Mrs. Learned, pink. I just turned that into a R, sorry. There's my N, K. Boy, this is difficult. All right, and what's my phenotype ratio? I might not even write it because it takes too long, right? Phenotype ratio is, oh, I just totally did that backwards. Did you notice that mistake? That's a very common mistake because genotype is what? The genes. So we're actually looking at 100% R, W. And 100% pink actually goes down here because that's the physical feature, right? Very nice. Good catch, people. Good catch. All right. So that's one example. That's incomplete dominance. Do you think you could do this example in which you would cross two pink plants? Hopefully you know that with these two, you're going to cross R, W, and R, W. Go ahead and take a moment, pause the video, and try that one yourself. Now, here's what's going to happen. You should end up with a ratio, a genotype ratio, of 1 to 2 to 1. 1, homozygous red. 2, heterozygous for pink. And 1, homozygous for white. That is also, not only is it the phenotype ratio, it is also the genotype ratio. Awesome. Now, another example is codominance. This is where both alleles contribute to the phenotype. One example is color in chicken feathers, okay? This is what you're going to want to record in your packet. There's what's called the checkered chicken. There is a white allele and a black allele. In this example, with codominance, you can actually see each trait by itself, which is what provides that striping. We can see white and we can see black. We don't see a gray chicken, okay? Incomplete dominance is blending. Codominance is where we get to see both. Multiple alleles is probably the most difficult type of inheritance for people to understand. It's a gene where there's actually more than two possible alleles. Human blood type is a perfect example. There's actually 3 alleles. You can inherit the allele for A blood type, designated like this, B blood type, or the recessive allele, which is what gives us O blood type. So the different possible combinations for phenotypes include type A, type AB, type B, or type O. What exactly does that mean? Well, you can see here, and you should jot this down in your note packet, that there are two different genotypes in order for somebody to inherit A. And you can inherit two of the capital, the dominant alleles, for A blood type, or you can inherit what we would consider the A allele and that recessive O allele. So that's another way that people write that. Now, the reason this is important is type A blood only produces, oops, I didn't switch this, it only produces what we call A-type proteins on the surface of our red blood cells. So if you're type A blood, your immune system recognizes those A proteins and doesn't destroy your own blood. But if somebody gave you type B blood, notice how the proteins on the cell surface are structurally different. If they gave you type B blood in a blood transfusion, your immune system would attack that blood. It wouldn't do you any good. Likewise, if you were type B blood, inheriting either homozygous dominant for B or heterozygous, you wouldn't be able to get A blood. Here's the interesting one. Type AB blood has both types of proteins. Okay? Now what's interesting about that is that type AB blood could receive type A, type B, or type O. Type O blood, the only way you get that is by inheriting both of those recessive alleles, or OO, if you will. I know it says lowercase I, but that's just the allele that stands for type O blood. Type O blood doesn't actually have any blood proteins on the surface. So type O blood can only receive type O blood, but it could donate to type AB, to type B, or type A. So you may have heard of that as being the universal donor, whereas type AB is the universal recipient. Now, there's one other trait, or type of inheritance, that we can study, and it's called polygenic traits. These are traits that are controlled by many genes. Human skin tone is a perfect example. If we were to stand up in the room and we were to look at everybody's inside of their arm, we could line up from darkest skin tone to lightest skin tone, okay? And everybody, no matter what their ethnic background, would have variations of what that skin tone looks like. Now, what I want you to remember is that our characteristics aren't always 100% genetic. Sometimes they're determined by the interaction between genes and environment. For example, a tall sunflower that receives the tall genes, still needs sun and water in order to be tall, right? You're not going to grow very well as you get older if you aren't taking in enough calcium to supply your bones with the needed nutrition in order to make new cells. Same thing. So, hope you've learned a little bit about the types of inheritance, and now it's time for us